I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, please join us in a moment of silence. All right, thank you very much. All right, so we're going to start off. We had our closed session already. We're going to move through citizen concerns. Citizen concerns is anything that is not on the agenda. We do have a pretty full house, so try to make sure we got cell phone silence as well.
Hey, I'm Mike Simone. I live at 1600 Fayette. I am the CWA 7177 president. We are the Deputies and Jailers Union. And we're asking you guys, since you gave the wage employees last month a 4% raise, if you would kindly consider opening our contract up for pay again. Just for pay. I sent you guys a letter Wednesday last week. It will impact all of our families, considering that inflation is going up, our pay is staying the same. Seems everything around us is going up, but our pay. We're not asking to be at the top. We just want to be compensated for where we are and what we do. Our job description, a lot of people don't want to do it. There's a good chance you're not coming home at night, as compared to, say, fast food restaurant. You go home, or excuse me, you go to work, you warm up burgers, you flip them, you go home. You don't have to worry about somebody taking your life that night, just like the incident we had a few weeks ago that everybody knows about. Could have turned out a lot worse for us. Right now, if we were to lose somebody because they're going to a different county that is actively pursuing some of our people that make a lot more money than us, that'll give us a 6 to 8 month gap in training. So for a deputy to get hired, they have to go to the academy, then they have to go through FTO. That puts them at least 8 months back with a gap in coverage for the county. I don't know what the taxpayers how long they want to wait and get lesser services for what they're paying for. But we don't want to work short either for what we do. Just a comparable to a county that neighbors us, their sheriff just got a 17% raise, and that trickles down to the whole sheriff's office. Woodbury County, we have 105,000 people in the county. As a deputy, we currently start at $55,000. For this county, which it is Plymouth, for those of you who don't know, they currently start at $76,000. They're $21,000 ahead of us just to start to go to the academy. Their top deputy they top out at $88,000. We top out at $75,000. Sergeants, they're at $95,000. We're at $82,000. So we need to somehow get our pay up a little bit so we can be comparable to everybody else that is doing the same job as us, even though we're $75,000 more than them. So, on behalf of our union, I would like to ask you guys to consider opening it up. And also, their jail just got a 6% raise with a 75% hour pay adjustment. So, just something for you guys to consider to get us up with everybody else, so we're not losing good people to other agencies. Thanks.
All right, do we have anybody else to be heard from?
We have a set time at 4:05, 3-minute limit on talks, so if you want to do your hearings first and then.
I can't, where are we at here? Okay, I have 4:05 on my phone. I don't know if that's what you got.
It is 4:05.
Okay, so we'll come back to you.
There it is.
All right, so I got
What's
four.
that? Oh, okay.
So 4:05 set time, which is on our agenda as 8A, the public hearing to amend the text as subsection 2.0.4 and 2.01.5 of the Woodbury County zoning ordinance.
Good evening, Supervisors. David Gleiser, Director of Community Economic Development. This evening, we are proposing an amendment to a section of the county zoning ordinance so that our local zoning regulations better comport with current state law. You might remember on June 1st in 2020, House File 2512 was signed into law. That was an act relating to county zoning procedures, and it included an effective date and applicability provisions. The big thing that the new law changed was that it prohibits county residents who reside within a city's corporate boundaries from serving on the county zoning commission or board of adjustment. So only residents that live in unincorporated Woodbury County can serve on these respective bodies. And when we learned of the amended law during the summer of 2020, it caused us to lose 3 of our volunteers on two of those bodies. We had 2 Sioux City residents on the Board of Adjustment, and we had 1 Sergeant Bluff resident on the Zoning Commission. And unfortunately, that summer, we also lost another one of our Zoning Commission members as they unfortunately passed away. And the state gave counties until the end of the 2020 calendar year to fill any respective vacancies on either of those boards. Luckily, we still had 3 members on each body, so we were able to have a quorum and conduct county business as usual. We actively recruited throughout the county, and we were successful in filling 4 vacancies before the end of the year deadline. And after we sat our new members, we began to write the first draft of a zoning ordinance text amendment, the amendment that we're talking about tonight. And this is to repeal and replace subsections 2.01.4 and 2.01.5 of the county zoning ordinance. And it's specific to language pertaining to the establishment, appointment and membership, rules of procedure, and powers and duties of both the Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustment. The proposed powers and duties in the language that's in front of you today, that came straight from Iowa Code Chapter 335, which is county zoning. The sections pertaining to the establishment of both bodies remain basically the same. And although the ordinance states that these bodies may have rules of procedure, neither have ever formally adopted any. The section regarding the appointment and membership of both bodies was modified to bring clarity and consistency regarding term limits. As we review the history of appointments to the Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustment, we realized that the Board of Adjustment had language on the county website saying they were eligible to serve up to 2 5-year consecutive terms. And it appears that the previous zoning administrator was terming volunteers out after 10 years of service. The Zoning Commission, however, did not have this language on the website, and we could not find any recent evidence of the previous administrator terming members out from the commission. And while we discussed this issue in conversation with one of our board liaisons, it was recommended that we add the language regarding 2 consecutive terms to both bodies so each are treated equally. When we initially presented the proposed text amendment to the Zoning Commission, they directed us to add language to provide current members with an exception to the term limits. And after doing so, we presented the Board of Adjustment with the newly revised document, and then we brought it back to the Zoning Commission for a second and final review. During that last meeting, there was a great amount of discussion, and the members shared some of their concerns as it relates to future recruitment. And there's a sense or a feeling of some that the county may have a hard time filling these positions going forward. There's also some sentiments and feelings that members who have a long history of service volunteering on these bodies have a lot of historical knowledge that future appointees or even staff may not know. So there's some of that I want to make sure that the Board of Supervisors hear. But I guess I would say that we listened to the concerns of all members. We incorporated all of the language that they wanted, and we presented it to County Attorney's Office for legal review. I'm aware of Assistant County Attorney Whitman's review and comments to the Board of Supervisors. And after reviewing that, staff feels comfortable with Whitman's recommendation and striking the sentence that provides a special exception, because I do think the sentence that immediately follows that provides the board with the ability to appoint somebody who has termed out if there is no other qualified candidate after a 3-month-long good faith effort. So I would like to share this with you folks because I think this data will help provide some context to your decision making on this particular topic. And then here's the screenshots of our websites where it shows the zoning commission has term limits and the board of adjustment does not. So all we're trying to do is bring some clarity and consistency to current and past practice and get in line with Iowa code. Outside of the term limits, we're really not changing or recommending anything different than what the code states the purposes of these bodies are to do. So what we did is we did a historical analysis of every volunteer who has been appointed to the County Zoning Commission or Board of Adjustment, and we kind of broke them out into segments. So you can see that the bottom segment are folks that have served less than 1 5-year term. Folks above that have served 1 term, but less than 2. Folks above that have served 2 terms, and the folks above that have exceeded 2 terms. So I guess, you know, a question that you might ask yourself is, do we have an issue? And I think that data may tell a story. Go ahead.
Question, Mr. Chair. So are you comfortable, Joshua, with the striking of that, making it amenable then, in your estimation, otherwise?
Right, as David set out, I think that there is a concern constitutionally with the language that's proposed from the Zoning Commission in that it arbitrarily creates a class of certain individuals that are eligible for serving longer than others. But the change as suggested by David, which removes the clause related to only the current members, I think cures that problem. And as he said, the 3-month good faith effort addresses the issue of if there's difficulty in finding qualified members. So I guess that's a long answer to your question, but essentially, yes, I'm comfortable with what David's proposing.
I would also add or throw this out as another option. Another option to that would be to just forget the term limit at all and not include that. I'd like to go on the record and share a comment from the chair of the Zoning Commission and share some of her sentiments. Since I don't see her in the audience today, if that would be okay.
Sure thing.
Just take the term limit language out altogether. This would resolve the issues altogether. Supervisors already have the power to determine who and how long an appointee is on the Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustment through their application, appointment, and review process. Requiring language in the zoning rules is redundant, restricts future decisions by supervisors, unnecessarily restricts the selection processes, and discriminates against current and former members when they are clearly willing to serve on a commission or board that historically has had difficulty finding applicants.
There's nothing constitutionally or by code that means we have to have term limits. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct, I believe so.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything that requires it.
So can we do that in this, after this public hearing, hearing no comments from the public? Because I agree with that. I don't think, I mean, we're sort of the natural term limiters to somebody who's acting outside of, you know, the bounds of what's good for planning and zoning.
Yeah, the proposed amendment is subject to whatever changes the board would like to do following the public hearing. So the process would be to open the public hearing, and if there's no comments, then the board is free to.
Well, and I think in general, though, I mean, when you look at like city zoning, they have a 2-term limit. You can only serve 2 consecutive terms. You have to be off and then you can come back and serve another 2 consecutive terms, from what I understand. So, you know, the idea is to get some rotation there so you don't have people making all, the same people, you know, how many people is it, 5? So
Each
you'd
county
have,
has 5 members.
so, I mean, you'd have the same 5 people essentially making all the zoning decisions in the county for, I mean, that's a lot of years served for our members. And, I mean, no offense, I'm not saying anyone's doing a bad job, but at the same time, you know, the zoning commission has a lot of power. And the idea is that you do get that rotation out there.
The biggest, at the staff level, you know, the biggest concern that we had is that we actually, my first year as the director, I termed a volunteer out. And then it wasn't until, you know, we looked at the terms for the zoning commission, and it was just happened to fall that that particular member had it on there, and it was on the website, and so we termed them out, and now I feel like that may have been the wrong move. There's inconsistency, and we need to clarify. We need to clear it up one way or another, I guess. And so whatever the board's pleasure is, I'm comfortable with either.
You have trouble filling these?
To be honest with you, Supervisor Taylor, I did not think it was that hard to find appointees. It's just a matter of getting out there and letting folks know the opportunity is available. To be honest with you, I mean, it wasn't that big of a struggle.
When we meet with the Farm Bureau this Thursday, we can also bring it up that, you know, if anybody in the rural area was ever having an inclination to be on zoning or Board of Adjustment, that we need rural residents that are willing to volunteer, and I think some of those guys, you know, them or spouses or family would be interested. Surprised there's only one Woodman on here.
With that, I'll close my remarks unless the board has any other questions.
Is there anyone else to be heard in the public hearing? Anyone from Zoning Commission here or Board of Adjustment that wanted to speak on behalf of themselves rather than their boards?
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
All right, I'll second that. Motion by Taylor, second by Raddick to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. And I guess personally, I'd like to see that language stay in here, but we can come back to that because we're no longer on the set time. So. You want to finish it? All right, so.
I would move to approve the ordinance to amend subsections 2.01.4 and 2.01.5 in the county zoning ordinance with the removal of the term limits.
Second.
We have a motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. So any discussion? Of course, I'll vote no. I prefer the term limits. Anyone else have anything to say one way or the other?
I think it's a fail-safe having term limits, so that, I mean, it's our responsibility to keep those boards staffed and to keep some rotation, but those term limits ensure that somebody's paying attention at some point.
You're speaking in favor of it?
Yeah, no, I think they need to stay in, just because otherwise, if people aren't paying attention, those things could fly right by us.
And I guess my only rejoinder or comment back, or the reason I'm supportive of removing them, is we don't have term limits on this board. And there's been times in the past where a wealth of experience has been brought, in addition to the fact that sometimes I think that these are perishable knowledge bases that leave when we term limit good people. So for that reason, it seems a little arbitrary. Plus, we renew those people, and so I think we're the natural corrective. That would be my only argument. So.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Say nay. Nay. So it passes 3-2. All right, now we will go on back. Oh, wait, we got to have the first reading of that. I'll move the first reading.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. And then we move that rules procedure there for that as well. That's the same
Rules of
thing.
procedure are basically just codifying, current practice, and, it's sort of our Robert's Rules of Order. We borrowed a little bit of language from the Supervisors bylaws, and so that our members, when there is a case needed, have the ability to participate electronically. That's really the big reason why we added it.
Sounds good. Isn't that, can they allow electronic participation on that?
Yeah, it clarifies that there has to be a quorum in person so that they avoid the requirements for an electronic meeting. But if they have that in-person quorum, then it's permissible for additional members to participate electronically.
Okay. I'll move to approve the rules.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0.
I think it's very helpful.
Thank you. Moving back to item 2, citizen concerns. Come on, back up.
Thanks, everyone. Corey Davis, 202 6th Street, down Sergeant Bluff. I'm honored to be here to represent the Woodbury County Roads, Woodbury County Secondary Roads, but I also stand in solidarity with the deputies and the jailers. Mike had a lot of great points earlier, and I'm sure a lot of people today will have a lot of great points. I thank everybody for coming here to this meeting today with us. I also wrote a letter to you guys. Hope everybody had a chance to read it. We're here to respectfully and ask that you open up the wages part of our contract again. The reason we say that, we've actually been talking about this for months. It kind of got heated up last meeting, we understand, and I want to thank Rocky DeWitt and Sheehan and everybody else who spoke on our behalf and had our backs there. The reason we want to open this up is in 2019, I'm trying not to swear, so in 2019 we had no idea that it was going to hit the fan the way that it did. Our economy, things have gone up in price. One example that I used speaking with the news yesterday, I agree that we need a jail personally. We definitely need this jail. When prices went up on that jail, you guys found a way. You found the money to make that right, to keep that on track, to keep the process moving along. The men and the women that we represent, things have gone up on them too, and they're taking care of their families. They're not, they're trying to put gas in their vehicles. My meeting yesterday with a member, or with our members, one of them, they were sharing stories, their personal stories, and that's what really is impactful for me. A lot of these decisions are made based off of numbers. I know you guys have a budget. I'm on other committees. I know what it's like to operate a budget, within certain parameters. And, you made obligations to the taxpayers. I've got several houses within the county that I pay taxes and I pay very close attention, but I don't mind paying a few extra dollars for what I do. So, two sides to it. I don't want my dollars taken out of the pockets of the men and women that are taking care of our county, keeping it safe, keeping our roads safe, or keeping our streets safe, with what the sheriffs and deputies do. The other side of it, I think there's a lot of holes that I think that we could plug while we were talking with my members, places where we might be able to save the county money. Those are all budgetary things that I think could be hashed out, and if we actually open it up to bargaining, the wages. We're not asking for the world. We're asking to keep ourselves from going backwards on this wage scale that we're currently in. We're looking at a 2.25% increase in 2022. I'd like to see that higher. The news threw out a number. Yes, it's threw out some numbers yesterday. I want to publicly say that those numbers, where there was a lot of numbers thrown around in a meeting, we're not tied into those numbers. Was that my 3 minutes? I hope not. Okay.
3 minutes, I'm sorry, but it's up to them if they want to continue to let you.
If you can just finish your point there for.
Okay, my point. Let me finish with I'll finish my point with one of the examples that kept me up last night when I was trying to fall asleep. When one of our workers was talking to a farmer out there, and he shared with him what he made working for the county. The farmer laughed at him and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe the county used to be a great place to work. When did this happen?" he was actually laughed at because, I mean, we're having a hard time keeping employees here. We have a huge project coming up. We need, in my article in the paper, or my quote in the paper, quality labor isn't cheap and cheap labor isn't quality. And we need to keep these younger guys from going into the private sector. We need to get our best possible workers over here. So yeah, I can yield the rest of my time. I could talk all day, but thank you guys so much for your time, and thank you again for everybody else who's going to speak on this point today.
Hi, Todd Harlow, Woodbury County. I've been employed by Woodbury County for 35 years as a correctional officer. I started in 1987 and rose through the ranks to my current position, jail administrator. Over the years, I've sat on the negotiating board, and year after year, I hear how next year we'll get you guys a good raise. Well, those years come by, and promises are kicked further down the road. In my current role as jail administrator, I've witnessed how competitive the labor market is. And in the past, we've had 25 to 30 applicants. Now we're getting 6 to 8 applicants. With the current national inflation rate at 7%, I'm concerned that if the contract is not open for wages, then you go backwards, and retaining employees will become more and more difficult. Each time we lose a correctional officer, there's a gap in service of 9 to 11 weeks. This is cost of the taxpayers in multiple ways: losing experience, highly trained staff, training new staff, and overtime to fill the gap. Additionally, it will be more and more difficult to attract and hire new correctional officers due to the extreme competition for labor. With a new jail, we are anticipating 15 new COs. We'll be competing directly with Dakota County, who is also going to be hiring 16 to 17 about the same time as we are. To make things more competitive, in November of 2021, the state of Nebraska increased their starting wage for a prison guard from $20 to $28 an hour. Our current wage is $21.02. The job today is much different than when I started 35 years ago. Our staff are top-notch professionals to deal with being assaulted, having urine, feces, and other bodily fluids thrown on them. It truly takes a special person to work in this environment, so thank you guys. I work with a lot of men and women who love this job, and none of us get in this position to get rich, but to be treated fairly. Please allow me the opportunity to retain and hire the best people I can to serve Woodbury County. You can help by opening negotiations and raising the pay to be more competitive and keep with inflation. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else to speak?
My name's Tom Hankey. I worked for Woodbury County for 44 years. Secondary roads, 30 as an employee and 14 as a foreman. And I was under the understanding when CF come in, after they got established, Woodbury County would have so much tax money they wouldn't know what to do with it all. I'd just like to know where it is. It must not be going to wages. I've got a note here that I didn't know anything about this meeting until 9 o'clock this morning. You got Polk County making $30.88 an hour. That's $5.07 an hour more than our guys, 19%. You got Scott County, $32.33, $6.52 an hour more, 25% more. You got some counties here that I could just find labor. Lynn County, $28.77 for common labor. That's $2.96 more than our operators make, or 11.5%. I would just like to know how them counties can pay so much more than Woodbury County, and their men isn't any better than ours. And when I was here, when you'd have an opening come in, there would be 50, 60 applicants for it. Now, you got 5 or 6. Now, why is that? Because the wages ain't high enough to get anybody. If you want to get good people, you got to give them good wages. I'm just speaking as a taxpayer now. I got nothing to do with management or anything. But I just think it's kind of sad that the guys have to work for 25% less than other counties and have to work for less than what some of their just common labor works as. So, I mean, I ain't nobody, that's just my opinion. It looks like if that money from CF come in, some of it should have went to wages. I guess that's all I got to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else to be heard?
Hey, I'm Chuck Jorgensen, 3529 Lafayette. I work with the Woodbury County Sheriff's Office. I work in the jail. I would just like to preface everything I'm about to say with the fact that I know the history. I've been here since 1999. You didn't sit on the board when we had those original problems. It's unfortunate that they get put at your doorstep, but here they are. And the things I'm about to say, I don't want you to think I'm singling anybody out or anything like that. My name's Chuck Jorgensen. I've been employed with the county for over 20 years. Everybody that sits behind me pretty much knows me, and a few of them are probably wondering what's going to fall out of my head at this moment. Many years that I worked in that jail, we were offered 0% raises. Like my captain said, we were always told, hey, next year, we'll get you on the backside. That never occurred, and when we asked about it, our jobs were literally held above us. The term at-will employee became sentence structure. It was a scary time for the people that worked there. I could spend all this time talking about me and how much training I have and the huge impact that if I left, it would cause the county, but I'm a realist. A wise man once told me that if I quit my job or if I died, my obituary wouldn't be in the paper until after my job posting. And I think about that, and I'm like, that's true. You'd have my job posted before my obituary showed up in the paper. I would much rather spend this time talking about those I work with, the sacrifices I see these men and women make daily. It's no secret inflation is up, it's astronomical, and it's not a temporary issue. I don't see any cure for that in the foreseeable future, but it does affect everybody that is a wage employee. I hear the words often, we have a responsibility to the citizens of Woodbury County. It's a catchphrase, it's good. You do have that responsibility, but I would like to hear more. We also have a responsibility for those who work for us and keep this organization moving forward. As you look at me, and you look at all of us that are here, learn the face. We're the face of the numbers that get crunched. We feel the impact. This is not a second job for us. This is our primary job. I could go to the private sector. I could start at $35 an hour turning a wrench, but I love my job. I love what I do. And the people that stand behind me don't come here because they want to get rich. They come here because they have that same feeling. When I started 23 years ago, I made $9 an hour. I qualified for government assistance. We literally qualified for free cheese and rice. Through the years, some attempt was made, but nothing I would consider fair. My fellow officers are still roughly 20% behind their comparable counties. My captain makes less than a much smaller county jail captain would make. My lieutenants make far less than they are worth, and my sheriff as well. Do I have any?
Can you wrap up the?
I will. The weight of the supposed responsibility to citizens' overall care they receive from any of the service offered by this county. We're the ones that deliver those promises. We're the ones. Pay us fairly. I beg of you to open up our contract negotiations again. I had a whole part in here about the mentality of telling people, hey, if there's a better job somewhere else and you can make more money, why not take it? Why not breed the mentality of, how about we take care of you so you stay? That's important to me. The people I work with are important to me. They're my second family. 12 hours a day I live in that jail. So if you would kindly consider opening up wages. I didn't get to say everything, but that's fine. I just appreciate everybody that came here today. County roads and everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Anybody else to be heard?
From the Sheriff's Office, been there just about 35 years. The way we do corrections now, I'm talking on the jail side, is way different than it was when I started. It was way different than it is 5 years ago. The things that the officers are required to do, documentation, just everything in general has stacked up so high. It has become kind of ridiculous, to be honest, to keep people out of lawsuits, to keep us out of lawsuits, the stuff that they have to do. They do a wonderful job. Daily, they're getting assaulted by inmates. Thank God we're getting a new jail. It's more than overdue. Hopefully that helps. Every day I see these guys, boots on the ground, out there getting stuff thrown at them, cussed at, spit at. Just today, another use of force incident for stuff. And to not get a raise or a minute raise in the comparison to what the inflation is, it's sad. It's sad for these guys, for all of us that are here every day, that have been here every day. So just consider opening their contract, get this done. If you haven't been over to the jail, see how it operates, I invite you to come over sometime and see what these guys do every day. It's definitely an eye-opener, so thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Anyone else to speak?
Kenny Schmitz, Woodbury County Building Services. I actually represent two different groups. That'd be the wage plan people that you discussed in budget discussions last week, and the union people, hourly wage earners. First off, the wage plan employees. With the current inflation, I don't believe your 4% meets inflation for these employees and their families. I agree with Rocky DeWitt's comments last week, and I actually asked Rocky, does the rest of the board actually have a list of these wage plan earners that you made a decision about last week? Did you have the backup information to see who those employees were? And he commented, no. I think you should know what employees you're making decisions on, so they're not just a number. As far as the union employees go, of course I understand that contracts have been signed. Those aren't open for negotiations right now. But what I can say about that is our employees aren't keeping up with the rest of the marketplace, whether that's the wage plan earners or the organized union employees. Obviously, the county probably won't ever keep up with the private sector, but it shouldn't be at a substandard rate where you have trouble hiring those employees. The last maintenance person I hired took me 3 months. We had approximately less than 20 applicants. One employee that we did eventually hire, I actually contacted several times because I knew the individual and tried talking him into coming to work for the county. I finally was able to do that, although there was some reluctance there. And so with that said, I would encourage the board to look a little deeper. Try to not balance Woodbury County's budget off your employees' backs. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. Anybody else to speak?
Guys, Nate Sands with the Sheriff's Office. I am currently wrapping up my 20th year over there, so I know most of you guys. I just wanted to hit a couple points with you guys real quick, maybe to help with your decision making when it comes to opening this thing back up. Talking with the higher ups, if you guys didn't know this, it costs roughly $10,000 to send one officer through the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy. That is a 16-week program, and when they come out of here, when they come out of that academy and they graduate, we have paid for that. The taxpayers have paid to send that person through the academy. The very next day, they can go, these guys offered me $23,000 more a year, I'm going to them. They just got a certified officer for free. That guy doesn't have to pay anything back, he doesn't owe us anything. It's happened to us. We had a guy graduate from our academy, and he is now working for another agency, making more money, and we got to eat that bill because we weren't anywhere near comparing to what they were able to pay him. The comment that Simone brought up about Plymouth County, their population is, I think, 23 or 25,000 people. That's 1/4 of Woodbury County, and they're paying their deputies $21,000 more a year than what we're making here. They're not seeing half the things that we're seeing here as far as calls for service. And I'm speaking on both sides of the coin. I spent my first 11 years in the jail, and my last 10 have been out on patrol, so I can talk on both sides of this deal. The jail is not a nice place to work, and patrol can be just as bad. When I first applied for the sheriff's office, the very first time I came out and tested, we had over 140 applicants. This last time when I went out and helped run the PT, I believe we had 25 or 27 applicants show up. I'm sure you guys watch the news. This isn't a job that people want to do in the United States anymore, especially if we're not willing to pay the people that are making sure that you can go to sleep at night without somebody kicking in your door. If we're not going to pay them, what are we doing here? Sorry, I lost my notes here. I guess one of the things that I would like to see, the last thing that I would bring up is I'd like to see a commitment from you guys to publicly bring this up to a vote, put it on the agenda for next week. That's all I have.
Anybody else to speak?
Sage Lewis, live at 407 Wood Meadows Drive in Sergeant Bluff. Currently I work for the Sheriff's Office, Deputy Sheriff. I'm also a member of the CWA Local 7177. Today I'm here to ask you guys to go ahead and open up our contracts for wage negotiations. Everybody here has brought up inflation, cost of living. One person brought up the COVID-19. All that stuff it's legit. It's what's going on. Myself, like Sergeant Sands over here, I started in the jail as well. I worked 10 years up there. I did prisoner transport, and like he said, the jail isn't a nice place to work. The amount of duties that have now been like given to the correctional officers up there, I mean, they're running Bible study, they're running BEP classes for offenders, they're trying to find them jobs. All that stuff is just extra duties with what? With no other sort of compensation. These guys are going into the sections with people that have COVID-19. They still have to get fed. They still have to go in there and do their cell checks to make sure that nobody's in there, dying or getting beat up or anything like that. For us on patrol, we're still responding to calls. We're still going and kicking in doors, running down those dark alleys to chase these bad guys. We don't know if they have COVID. We don't know whenever we do catch them, when we search their pockets, if they're gonna have a loaded syringe in there. We don't know that. You have more and more cops every day getting killed. Well, they're sitting there doing reports from heart attacks and now COVID? Come on. When we have supervisors come to our union meetings, right? Whenever it comes time to campaign, we always open up the door. You guys come in there, you guys tell us that you're labor friendly and ask for support or just to get your side out there. And we listen to you every single time. This right here, we're sitting in front of a whole audience. I'm over here with my brothers and sisters. We have the roads over here. Unions are coming together. The same things that were told to us about being labor friendly, I guess I'm asking you guys on this. Well, put your words where, you said them before. Ultimately, guys, I would, just like Sergeant Sands said, I would love for you guys to go ahead and move this, to your guys' agenda for the next meeting and have a vote. Whether or not you are or not gonna go ahead and open up our contracts to renegotiate. I guess ultimately, after you guys have your vote, nothing for us is gonna change. If you say yes, if you say no, whatever, we're still gonna press our uniforms, polish our boots, shine up our badge and go to work. Every single one of us here. We love our job. But I guess, the outcome of that, the outcome of a vote, if it does move to a vote, it's gonna show us what we mean to you guys, what our worth is. So, there we go. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Blake Stolliger, Sheriff's Office, 2816 South Glass. I want you to know me as a person, not a figure. I've worked for the Sheriff's Office for almost 9 years. 8.5 has been on overnights. I have skipped family functions, worked holidays, shown up on my days off to take care of a riot at the jail. These guys behind me, these girls behind me, every day they come to work, and every day they're looking at second jobs to help pay for their bills, to feed their families. They look at doing plasma. I shouldn't have to do plasma. I'm a sergeant, I make a higher wage. I live within my means, but if I have to look for a second job, look for doing plasma, you guys aren't doing your job at taking care of your employees. These guys every day face evil, look them in the eyes. You have to go in the room. I've had to gown up in masks, shields, gowns to go take care of sick people that society is too afraid to be around, so they stick them in jail. We're the ones that keep them inside the building and keep you safe while you sleep at night. I ask for you to make a commitment to open this contract, not because we're greedy, because we have to live. And I thank you for your time.
Anyone else to speak, or also give a show of hands in support of what people have said, or if they're here on behalf of a union, you can come on up, Jorma.
Jorma Schwedler, 607 Kingston Circle. I've worked for the Sheriff's Office for 18 years. That doesn't matter to you guys, I understand that. I'm married with 4 kids. Just about everybody in my family has a commitment to the community or their country. Three of my 4 kids have either served in the military or are planning on joining the military. My wife is an ER nurse. I am a Marine Corps veteran. I guess I just want you to know me and why I'm asking for you to open up the contract. My son did 8 years in the Marine Corps. He didn't see any combat. He learned how to drive a truck. Came home, joined the railroad, is there 6 months, and he makes $1.50 less than me, and I've been here 18 years, and I'm a supervisor. Why would somebody want to come do my job when they can make $1.50 less? That's all I got.
Anyone else to speak? All right.
Hi, I'm Terry Boyle, Secondary Roads out of Danbury, and I was hoping you guys could open the wages again because you can't work here and just live off this job. You gotta have 2 or 3 jobs just to make a living, with living costs going up, fuel going up, everything's just expensive. So, and if you guys wanna ride with us in a snow run, see how it works with us, go ahead and jump in. It's dangerous out there, pushing that snow, falling in the ditches, when you guys are all in your warm houses and everything like that. That's all I got to say. If that's really open, you guys can open up the wages for us and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak?
Hi,
Who?
Jen Pellin. I'm with the Western Iowa Labor Federation. Thank you for your time today. We're really proud to have both of the CWA units represented here as our affiliates. And the last time I was here, we were talking about the new jail, and it was you all telling us how dangerous and difficult their jobs are inside that facility. And I'm not too proud to say you weren't wrong. They are dangerous and difficult jobs. And bearing that in mind, you know, I don't think it's too much to ask to open up this contract and negotiate to raise these wages at this time. Shortly after that meeting, I had the privilege and honor of touring that facility and meeting a lot of our members who work in the jail, and, you know, everything that they're describing is exactly as it is. It's not a great place to work, and they do their jobs with amazing commitment every single day, and that commitment deserves the dignity of, you know, a fair hearing about these wages. So I thought it was interesting when Mike said earlier what the difference in pay is for Plymouth County. Another thing that we talked about when we were talking about the new jail is the fact that a lot of the most dangerous prisoners in the region get transferred to Woodbury County Jail. Some of those prisoners come from Plymouth. So they're sending their most dangerous criminals here, and these guys are working for $20,000 less a year. That's crazy. And, you know, finally, I would just say that throughout this pandemic, throughout the last couple of years, we've just heard so much about how these folks in this room right now are essential. Essential, essential, essential. We heard it over and over and over again, how essential their work is. And in fact, many of these people in this room didn't get a day off during the pandemic. And I think it's time for us to put our money where our mouth is. It's not that workers don't appreciate the thanks. It's not that we don't appreciate being recognized as essential. But frankly, you can't pay your bills with that. And like we said, they need a new jail. They're going to get it. That's a couple years away. What we need right now is to be able to pay our bills. What we need right now is to be able to put our kids through school. What we need right now is to be able to put our kids through college. So I think that it's only right to reopen this contract and to look at the very modest ask that these folks are making. Thank you.
Sounds like we got Bill Burrows on the phone there. If you'd like to speak there, Bill.
William Burrows, 4409 47th Street, out here in Leeds. I'd like to, as a taxpayer, I'd like to support the efforts of the unions that are asking to have the contract reopened. I want and my family to be safe, and these guys and women are, as they've mentioned before, putting their lives on the line. I wouldn't work in a jail if you paid me $1 million. They have a tough job. And the guys that maintain the roads, any of those public employees are worth their salt. And as a taxpayer, I'm behind them 100%. Thank you.
Anybody else to speak?
Hi, I'm Dave Junge. Been with Woodbury County for 25 years. I've lived out in Bronson in a rural community. I've lived in Sioux City. A lot of these people here, county roads and deputies, everybody lives out in the county, most of them do. You're looking at volunteer firemen, EMTs. I was a volunteer EMT for 18 years. It's nice that the roads, when you live out in the county, that they are curved all over the place. It's not just like driving down the street in Sioux City. If they don't plow them, you don't even know where the road's at. These people are public servants. They come here with the blind faith of when you choose this profession, there's somebody that led you to it, whether it be past family members to heroes, because all these people are heroes, okay? And I don't like being compared to a fast food worker. I don't think I could do their job. They can probably do it better than I do. But I know what it is like to do this job. And it's a lot. When you can carry that on your shoulders, come in every day and work with people like this, you have the best in the community. Don't shrug your shoulders and act like it's just something I can take with a grain of salt. If you work in retail, your profits have already gone up. You don't even have to ask your boss, hey, am I gonna get a paycheck? No, because we can raise the price of cars, furniture. Somebody's gonna come in and buy it. I'm just asking you, don't turn a blind eye. I've been a council member in Bronson. I know what pipe dreams look like. This is reality. Don't forget that. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak?
I'm Charles Clark from Lawton, Iowa. Secondary roads employee, motor grader operator for Banner Township. Wish I was half the public speaker the sheriff's department is, but I'm not. So I'm hoping you'll open this contract to adjust wages so we do not continue to fall backwards in our personal finances. A jump in pay would help me and my family to pay for the large increases at the grocery store, gas station, and any repairs done on vehicles in our home. I will say that a 4% across the board for all employees probably isn't good enough when you only make $55,000 a year compared to others making 100 plus. That still leaves us short and still hemorrhaging money. This raise would allow us to maintain and acquire quality employees for the county. We need a boost to stay with the county while other employers are hiring for more pay. Examples would be any maintenance job in the tri-state areas, starting at 30 plus an hour. Thank you.
Hello?
Just a minute, Maria. Go ahead.
Troy Paul, I've been here 21 plus years. Every year you guys come out to our safety meeting and tell us how good we are. Mark, you tell us how good we are. When are you gonna step up?
Go ahead, Maria.
This is Maria Rehnquist, 3121 Norman Drive. I'm a taxpayer and I am a business woman. And also I like to support to open a contract and negotiate these wages for the deputies and the jailers. I support the inflation that we have, and it's very difficult to make ends at this time. So I support open a contract. Thank you.
Anybody else to speak here?
My name is Kyle Sanderson, and I just started working for the roads department about June. I came from the private sector, owned my own business in the private sector, closed that business, worked for another gentleman in the private sector, chose to come to the public sector, taking about a $20,000 a year cut. I got to admit, I'm starting to wonder if I made the right decision monetarily. I love the guys I work with, and there's a lot of guys over here that got a lot of pride in what they do. Every day, as a new guy, I'm getting preached to how, do this because it saves the county money. Do that, you cost the county money, so don't do that. These guys care. Please care yourselves. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak?
Good evening, Sheriff Sheehan. I just want to make sure that I clarify a few things. I've had some people in the community reach out to me as, you know, I'm a politician. I wouldn't consider myself a politician, but when you run for an elected office, I guess you become a politician whether you like it or not. And people have reached out to me and questioned, why is a conservative Republican, a physically conservative Republican, asking the Board of Supervisors to open the labor contracts, and what an idiot you might be for if you have political aspirations. I don't have any further political aspirations other than being the sheriff of Woodbury County. None. okay? And I feel that we are physically conservative in the sheriff's office. And we've given back, and Dennis is working on numbers, and I hope to have them to you in the next week or so, but at least over $100,000 per year over the last several years, 3-4 years for sure, where we give that money back, and that is part of what has bolstered the reserves for Woodbury County. We give back around $60,000 last year that I know for sure, and then another $60,000 or $70,000 annually out of our medical funds, which goes back into the county's general fund, which if it isn't spent, and Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong or if I misunderstood our conversation the other day, that money will then be placed into reserves, and that's been part of bolstering the reserves. So I just want everybody to understand that, yes, I am a fiscal conservative, and we watch every penny that we spend, and we spend it as wisely as we possibly can. But sometimes, as those of you that run a business understand, sometimes it costs money to run a business. And in this case, it costs money to properly compensate and fairly compensate the people that are doing the work. And PJ said it better than I could say it last week. Without them, I can't succeed. I'm not working in the jail on a daily basis. I try to get up and understand and know what they've got going on. I don't get out onto the road as much as I was hoping I was going to and all those things. It's all of them that allow all of us to be able to look good. So I just want to assure anybody that had any questions about any motive from what I had to say last week, it was out of conservatism to me, because what I don't want to see happen, and this was part of my concern that I tried to express, what I don't want to see happen is some unforeseen big number in 2 or 3 years from now, where we're looking at trying to budget a 12% increase in pay. I would rather, at least from my perspective running my own business before I became sheriff, I would rather be able to budget the smaller numbers that we know we can deal with now. Whatever that number might be. It might not be exactly what they want. It might be closer to what you guys are. But to me, that made more sense. That's why I made that suggestion. Do something that we know we can manage now while we're setting this budget, so that we avoid the pitfall of having some huge number down the road. So the people that contacted me that were concerned, I just want to address that. And we will continue to watch every penny, rest assured, and hopefully we'll give you back $100,000 again at the end of this year. So I just wanted to clarify that. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Anyone else to speak? Would like to thank everyone for their comments. Going to go one last call if you want to make any comments. I can tell by, obviously the uniforms in the room, which side most people are here representing, supporting, and obviously nothing's on the agenda here. We can't speak to anything on, as far as that goes. But anybody that would like to speak one last call, we'll move on with the rest of the agenda. All right, thank you very much. Move on to item 3, which is approval of the agenda. I'll move that. Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Items 4 through 7 constitute consent agenda, routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously. Sorry, my microphone's not on. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 4, approval of the minutes of the January 1st, 2022 meeting. Item 5, approval of claims. Item 6, from County Attorney, Treasurer Tina Bertrand. Approval of resolution for abatement of taxes for RB and DB. Item 7A, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. And 7B, authorization to initiate hiring process. Any discussion on the consent agenda? I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Items 8A through D have already been covered. Moving on to item 9 from Jeremy Taylor. 9A is discussion and action to approve the revised auction agreement with Stalcup Ag Service and authorize the chairman to sign.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So this action item is a follow-up to last week's discussion and the unanimous consent of the board to have Stalcup Ag Service sell the county farm. And so this simply authorizes the revised auction agreement at the costs that are listed therein. We did have a good session and discussion as far as some of the mechanics. And with that, I'll take any questions, comments, or concerns. Hearing none, I'd move the agreement.
Second. Motion by Taylor, second by Raddick. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. 9B, we have discussion and action to reaffirm the Rolling Hills Community Service Region employees' employment. The Woodbury County is record of employer for purpose of all costs related to employees reimbursed by the region.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is really status quo. This is an unstable time for 4 employees that are employees of Woodbury County as we go through kind of a modification to the regions. And so this simply restates and reaffirms what our present practice is, and that's that these employees are our employees for purposes of benefits, unemployment, and so on. This will provide them the stability that they're needing during this uncertain time. So any questions, comments, or concerns?
I kind of felt like this is already kind of redundant, but if that's to just kind of give the affirmation essentially.
Yeah, it is, but with new counties coming in, I think there's some discussion, and this just gives some stability for our employees.
And the region's on record as supporting this?
Right, and they're asking each of our counties to come back to our county boards of supervisors and make sure that that is indeed our present posture.
They don't need any sort of backup or list or anything for us to reference?
No, our action today will simply bolster their 2080 agreement and really status quo.
Was that your motion?
With that, I'd move it.
I'll second. Motion by Taylor, second by Raddick. Any further discussion on the item? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on, item 10A from Secondary Roads, approve the certificate of completion of project Parent M66 with Govertson Smith Construction of Ida Grove for $261,771.85.
This project was for the replacement of a bridge on 240th Street with a twin box culvert. The work was completed within the plans and specifications.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to 10B, discussion of gravel mining and land development, county gravel pits north of Little Sioux Park.
The board asked a couple of weeks ago about the progression and use of the lands that the county owns north of Little Sioux Park that are being utilized for mining gravel. And what you see here is a map. The south end of the map is the border between Little Sioux Park and the gravel pit property we own. Moving up north to that final north end there, you see a box, and that's the south line of the Bracy Farm, which was purchased in 2018. The current area we're working within, if you look down toward the bottom of the aerial photo, it shows stage 1, Based on our estimates and test holes, we're expecting to be able to mine somewhere around 300,000 to 400,000 tons of gravel out of that area. We're basically working from the south end coming north, and you can see stage 2 there. This is the area paralleling the trail, where we're looking at another 300,000 to 400,000 tons. Stage 3, 200,000 to 400,000. Again, these are our best guesses. We went out and did some test holes on the property to see what gravel depth we had. So these are best based on the average depths of those gravel areas. Within these, the first 3 stages is the material that we're going to be using for the gravel road improvement program. By the time that's approaching completion, we will have utilized the area in those first 3 stages. The first contract we'll be letting here this month for putting gravel up on the ground for that project. We're only able to store about 300,000 tons of gravel on top of the ground right now. It's just we haven't got enough area mined. We don't want to set our stockpile right on top of more resources that we're going to need as the project moves forward. So we're trying to develop the ground to serve to store the material we bring up on top. And as we leave an area, we're looking at developing it for future park purposes. The goal eventually is that body of water that you see in that stage 1 area, which we're currently pumping dry for getting gravel out of it, is that gradually that will move north and it'll become more of a solid body of water. As we continue to strip topsoil and overburden material that isn't useful in the production of gravel, we'll be utilizing that farther back to do things, working in cooperation with conservation to build jetties, fish and wildlife habitat within the park areas, be able to do areas that would eventually be picnic or perhaps the expansion of camping, depending on what the park wants to do. We're really going to be guided by what we pull out of there. If we pull a lot more gravel, if that pond is bigger, that's less development area for camping and picnic areas later. So we're really going to learn as we go through this how we're going to be able to use that to the best efforts for the park and future development. Some of these areas, by the time we're done, we've dug to about 18 feet deep. In some areas, we're still getting gravel at that level. In other areas of the pits, it peters out between 10 and 12 feet. So it's going to vary as we go through there. But again, as we work our way north, we're gradually leaving behind land that will hopefully be quickly adaptable, probably after Dan and I are both retired, but quickly adaptable for use as that park's able to expand north. Now that top block labeled Stage A is the gravel pit area of the Bracy property. That line that you see between Stage A and Stage 5 is the property line on the 77-acre farm that we purchased. The area lying west between that Stage A box and Highway 31 is the area that we're currently renting out as farm property and recovering some of our investment in the area. There's no gravel in that area. We have some gravel that's available in those 2 pond areas that you see that gradually we'll be working our way through. When we purchased the Bracy farm, the survey that had been done by Hallett Materials estimated that between 70 and 100,000 tons of gravel was present on the property that could be easily mined. At this point, we're coming up on 40 to 45,000 ton that we've pulled out of there. So we're figuring that we have somewhere between 30 and perhaps as much as 80,000 ton left that we can perhaps find yet under there and process it economically. When it's done, this will look very different. The impounded area will likely be a decent-sized lake for whatever purposes come along later. The way that we're developing that Brazy pit, what is planned anyway, is every other year, and we're timing this the same as we do the railroad pit for the economics of scale for processing the gravel. Every other year we'll process material for maintenance resurfacing for the District 3 and District 2 staff between railroad pit and this pit. In less than 10 years, the Brazy farm should be mined out. Now, this farther to the south is probably closer to 20 to 30 years, depending on how we yield out of that. But that north portion will be done before any of the rest of it. At that point in time, in that, well, dealing with even numbers this year, in 2021 we mined, so we'd be looking 2023. I would say that we'd probably be done with the mining by 2025 with the material out of there by 2027. Would be kind of what we're anticipating the schedule, based on what we believe is still out there and recoverable. We do have a couple of areas where there might be gravel, but it just isn't in an area where it's going to be able to be processed. You know, we're keeping in mind we don't want to disturb or damage the trail that's out there. And some of those areas, if we have no room to creep to the south to try and get any of that material that's there.
Anything east of the trail drops off towards the creek or the river. Correct?
Correct, yes. Yeah, the trail's crowded as close to the river as it can be, Keith. You know, and again, we're trying to do scenic lake and park area, hopefully, as we roll up our mining operation behind it. But that's the rough plan, again, with the stage A being done in the next 40 years. Those farther stages 1, 2, and 3 being the areas where we'll be pulling the gravel for the gravel road improvement project. Then the balance of the areas, stages 4 and 5, those will be mined out over subsequent years. You know, with Brazy closed, we're going to need another source here south of Highway 20 for gravel. And the county will be able to utilize these properties that were purchased for their continuing needs for a number of years. We have similar assets up at the railroad pit where we have roughly 40 acres of gravel reserves up there that at the rate we're taking it out of there, we should have about a 20-year supply, we're hoping, up in that area as well.
Did have a curious question for Dan. I noticed that like the main building down at the Little Sioux campground is owned by the Anthon Cemetery Association. Is there a story behind that?
That's news to me.
There's like a very large 40-acre parcel within the park that is, it's got some of the RV pads on it and everything. Anthon Cemetery Association.
I called that DE before Dan, so.
All right. Well, we might need to look into that. Yeah.
Dan Heisel, Director of Conservation. I will look into that and see if my predecessor missed something, but I'm assuming that they wouldn't have developed and done that without proper ownership or an agreement there, so. And I know you guys talked to me last time we were here on the memo to talk about impact it would have on conservation. I know, and I think it's great what Mark's got laid out for the time frame for gravel. I will be retired before this even comes to a head, but I still care. We've been involved in long-range planning on this as with Mark and his department as well as our board. And hunting we talked about, well, unfortunately, to get the gravel, we have to raise the property and take the timber off. So I've caught an earful on that, but there will not be hunting there, so we don't have to worry about impacting the hunters. The only thing is
On that breezy piece to the north, if you were to go ahead with the development like you've talked, you get across the road there, within 200 yards, we have the breezy property that stretches north all the way up to the Fleming property, interstate property there that hunting is allowed on, so that would have a little impact on the hunting. But what I want to talk to you about more is the revenue. We're one of the few departments, one of the few, that actually gets to raise revenues and can charge for things. And we're talking, for our department, over $350,000 a year. Little Sioux Park pulls in over $200,000 a year in revenue. That all goes back into our CIP fund, which allows us to do the work that we do and not have to ask for tax dollars from you guys. And just an example, 100 and some sites, campsites at Little Sioux Park now, there'd be over 100 and some new sites put in the new park to the north, along with cabins, and they'll be bigger sites, they'll have full hookups. I guarantee you they'd be pulling in over $250,000 a year in revenue, just on the camping alone. Let's talk about the cabins. There's 80 to 100,000 that we pull in for revenue. And then if you have a 4-season shelter where you can have weddings and graduations and things like that, that people rent out, that's more revenue. And we look at it as quality of life, and that's what our plans are for the future for this, and working with secondary roads on development. He talks about when they pull out to do the reclamation. It's easier for them to work with us and do the reclamation, and it's great that we have that cooperation with the engineer's office, because you don't see that all the time in counties. Sometimes it's not there. So I just appreciate working with Mark on that. And like I said, we'll both be retired before it happens, but I think we need to be good stewards, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't trying to set it up for the next guy that's going to replace me. And hopefully there won't be any 40 acres hidden in there that they have to check on, right, Keith?
And you know, I think this is something that we've tried to work with, starting with Rick Schneider, and as Dan inherited. We've had a lot of gravel pits down here. I don't know if you folks realize that the Stubbs Range, Peters Pit immediately to the west, and all around that Stubbs Range were old gravel pits, very much like some of the little bodies of water that you see here. When those properties were purchased by the county in the 1930s and 1940s, their ability to reach deeper gravel reserves, pump those areas dry so they could get at that material, were pretty limited. So, you know, while we've retained our ownership of those properties, we now have the technology to get down deeper. And we're trying not to just leave a bunch of holes behind in the ground like what we have there south and east of the shooting range. And, you know, working with Rick and with Dan, we're trying to come up with plans so that we leave something behind that's a better legacy for the park, that will provide nice recreational areas for the public once we get done. That hasn't been always present. You know, we're trying to do retroactive work to our pit over by the Wright gravel pit. That area had never been really looked at with an eye to what's going to happen when that's done. Peters Pit was really the first effort where we looked at leaving behind a nice fishing lake when the use as a gravel pit was finished. We've been trying, as we develop these areas, to make sure we leave them behind so that we don't leave something unsightly, but we leave something that can provide outdoor recreation for generations that follow us.
And the only thing I want to comment is I have been getting some phone calls on this since this was in the news and on the agenda from people from Correctionville, and I instructed them to contact you guys, just so you know, because I told them it's not my project. I'm in it for the parks, and they want to see it developed as a park, and they think that's the way it should be. And if there's going to be taxes paid, they want it paid inside the city of Correctionville, not out in the county, and for the sewer and water and all that. And I'm not going to get into that. That's not why we're here, but I've instructed them to contact you. So just so you know, but I just appreciate you guys wanting to work with us on this, and it's not going to happen. You're right, Keith. We don't need to make a decision on this. Like, we can do that, and this whole board will change. Mark won't be here. I won't be here. It'll be a new board, a new director. So hopefully it'll just carry on, and the right decision will be made at the right time. So
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mark, here's your one sheet from before, too.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody with any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on here. Thank you for that presentation. Item 11, budget review discussion for FY 2023.
Okay. The reason I put it on this way, because this opens up anything within the budget. If the board had any items, I had any items, I do have one item where board administration, or board expense, that we can cut the professionalism budget down by 7,000, because actually the year that we actually doubled up, we're comparing that to the new year, so budget 14, so we can cut out 7,000 there.
And which?
Board expense, or board administration.
I'd move to reduce in that division.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Actually, motion by Taylor, second by Raddick. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0.
Then next week I will come back with something to present to the board. It'll be in your packet. I talked to several individuals that I could reach, and I've handed out something to Justin to look at and review if there's any questions, and we'll come back next week with that. And next week is the finalization of the budget to publish. I have to publish the maximum tax asking we're going to ask for March 8th. I have to get it to the newspapers 10 to 20 days prior.
And remind the public when we set the salaries for elected officials?
That is set actually at the public hearing. I did send an email I got back from Kerry Johnson that was sent by ISAC, that some counties are doing things ahead of time so they know where we're at in the budget. But this is ISAC telling this to Kerry Johnson, but technically they're supposed to be held at the public hearing, which is March 29th, as a part of the budget process. Some are doing it ahead of time. Kerry said they'll probably have to do it again because they legally aren't doing it right. They have to do it at the public hearing.
Is it March 29th or March 1st? March 29th.
March 29th.
Okay.
Yep.
So if the public wants to weigh in on elected officials' compensation, they can do so at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And has that been published? Do they know what those percentages are?
I think the Journal is putting something in, but technically no, they'll be published when we publish our budget 10 days prior to the hearing and 20 days, not more than 20.
Okay.
So it'll be in there so they can see it.
Thank you.
Andrew Donowa, Emergency Services Director for Woodbury County Emergency Services. I think in your budget package you got what I presented at the beginning of the budget season. Supervisor Wright told me to come back after wage plan was done, and that is why I'm here to talk about my employees' salaries and their hourly rate. So in saying that, I just want to ask, has any of y'all ever called 911? Was it the worst day in your life? One of the worst days in your life?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has anybody else in the room ever called 911 and it was one of the worst days in your life? Okay. I've personally called 911 myself because I was in a traffic accident once and it was one of the worst days of my life. And I've also called 911 because my little sister died, and the funeral home director came to pick her up, and the funeral home director had a heart attack in my house. So I just want y'all to let that set in. And if it wouldn't have been for me calling 911 for the funeral home director to have a heart attack in my house and then call the paramedics to come save his life as my little sister's laying there dead, we probably would have lost 2 people that day instead of 1. And I'm not saying that to make you pull on your heartstrings. I'm saying that because if that funeral home director couldn't have done his job the next day to go on and so forth, he would have died, and then somebody would have else, and then we kept going down the road. Long story short, what I'm trying to say is out in the county, we provide a service, and that's EMS and fire. If we don't provide that ALS service, there's no one there to provide it for the rural citizens of Woodbury County. And I'm asking for $21.53 across the board for all my employees because they have not seen a raise since they've started. I've got 3 employees with over 20 plus years of experience out there, and I'm asking you to do a straight across the board raise for them, and then hopefully we can work on throughout the years, them going to where they need to be. I have one employee that's been there for 28 years, another employee that's been there for 23 years, and another that's been there for a little over 21. And these guys, like I said, have never seen a cost or a raise in their benefits. And we all understand, and I'm not asking for what we talked about last week with the cost of living increase, but a raise across the board for them. And it's a little bit over 17% for the EMTs and 8% for the paramedics. And Supervisor Wright talked about how they're barely even close to being at cost of living. And then, of course, we've seen what's going on now with our cost of living and how much things are going up. So all I'm asking is that you go to $21.53 an hour. There are some offices throughout the county that make more than my skilled paramedics and EMTs and firefighters make.
You're attributing some words to me that I don't necessarily recall.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
May have been me.
I'm pretty sure when, like I said, when we were in the meeting about budgets, you said to come back after, and that's what I'm here
I think
for.
that's probably me.
Okay.
We are on the very general item 11. Oh. That's on the improvement request that's in the
Looks
back.
like this. So if you, sorry, I thought y'all were on it. So if you look and see in the red, that's how much it's going to cost for us to make sure that our employees out there get the adequate pay that they need.
All the way down.
Just clarify, this was as an improvement request, we did delete it out. So right now, there's no money in the budget to cover what he's asking for.
So if we could just get a general sense, because I want to make sure that none of us lose sight of this. We're at about a $1.7 million gap. Right now, we're raising taxes by $1.7 million. And I know you have some items potentially next week, but just so the public knows, that's the gap, that's the amount that taxes are going to be raised. This would add to that, is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
didn't we know we were going to be raising taxes with the building of a new jail for at least 1 year, maybe two?
A little bit, because when we built the jail, or planned on building the jail, our architect misdiagnosed how many people we need. He said we need no new employees. Now all of a sudden we need 15, which they can verify, or not them, but the sheriff himself. So, yeah, there's gonna be additional costs we did not plan on. When we first started this jail, that's all changed as we've gone through the process.
Right, but wasn't there some talk that we knew that we were going to have an elevation, a raising of some taxes because of the new jail, wasn't it?
Yes, for the first 2 years, because we don't have any federal prisoners to offset the debt service.
So,
It's gonna take us 2 full years to get to the third year, so the sheriff will have an idea how many federal prisoners during 23, 24 contracts, hopefully, that will have an idea how much we can use in 24, 25 budget year. The first 2 years, it is a tax increase, and we've been fortunate on one occasion where mental health's taken over by the state to help cushion that a little bit, and then.
so it's not like this is a huge surprise, is my question.
Oh, the increase?
Yeah.
Well, the increase actually is 1.893 million, and that's from new revenue, keeping the tax rate the same. And we're gonna balance it out that way through other 4 or 5 different items. But yes, the tax rate will stay the same, the increased tax asking because of new valuations, which we'd be foolish not to take. But even balance the budget, if we didn't take it, it'd be $1.9 million short, more than what we are. So right now, we're at I believe we're right now $1.9 million of general basic fund short, long 734, which helps balance out the general basic somewhat by 734. We're 268,000 short in rural basic, and 2,642,000 debt service. Short.
So we have a tax gap.
Yes.
And right now, this would add how much total?
I think it's around 88, isn't it?
Yeah.
Around 88,000.
Thank you for your opening, by the way. Are your employees considered wage plan employees?
Yes, sir.
So they are going to receive a 4%
Yes, sir.
raise?
No, they're going to receive the 4% cost of living increase.
or raise. Right, okay. So this would be over and above that, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did they not receive any wage plan increase in years past?
From my understanding, they have not received a wage plan.
Why were they exempted or why were they denied when they're getting a wage plan increase this year? Why in year were they not? Michelle, I don't know if you look like you have information.
They did receive the wage plan increase.
Okay.
I don't recall when the paramedic service was first established, if it was at the point where their wages were set for July 1st, so they may not have seen one that first year.
I think 2.5 years ago is when we implemented 2 3/4 paramedic coverage, if I recall that, because we did some voluntary reduction in juvenile detention, if you remember this kind of
Juggling.
Right. I just want to make sure that it sounds like your employees have received increases annually, whatever wage plan.
Cost of living.
Right, whether we call it a raise, a cost of living, an increase, maybe not to the level that you think is appropriate. And I'm not disputing that you think there's a disparity.
Yep.
But I just want to make sure that we're not exempting or excluding a certain group of employees. They have been receiving a cost of living.
Yep, cost of living.
Each year, okay. That's fine. I just,
Been in existence 2.5 years, so they did get 2.75 this current year and 4% this coming year. The emergency services staff, their wage plan did get the raises.
Did,
Did, yes.
okay.
If their wage plan, they got the wage increases, whatever the wage plan got that year.
Okay.
But he's talking about a whole separate thing here, emergency paramedics, not his emergency service personnel.
So, and let me back up. So what I'm trying to say is that my people altogether, paramedics and EMTs, they are well off the ball when it comes to what they should be making. Yes, I understand that they all got their cost of living increases, but that's for them to live each year and to have money to make sure that they can pay their bills. Just like what we were talking about last week, where people were saying gas is $3 and $4 a gallon. What I'm saying is that they are one of the lowest paid departments we are in the county when it comes to wages in general. And my people have to be skilled to do their job. We require them to have continuing education to do their job, but what we're paying them is not that. They can go be a paramedic or an EMT in a factory and make $30, $40 an hour. And my people love their job, don't get me wrong. It's just that I feel if we're going to compete with everybody else, and I know you've heard it all day, if we're going to compete with everybody else, we have to show them that they're worthy of their time. Like I said, I got a guy that's been here for 28 years, and he's barely making ends meet, and he's got another part-time job, or a full-time job on top of his regular full-time job. And then I could list all my other employees, and I'm not trying to bore y'all or tell you that, but I don't think that y'all understand what I'm saying when it comes to that they're out here every day running into the fight, just like the sheriff's office, just like the police officers, just like the roads, everybody else, but my people are making $18 and $19 an hour. That's all I'm saying.
Andrew, with respect, the way that you're characterizing wage increases as either cost of living or a raise, I haven't received, the way you're defining it, I haven't received a raise since I became a professional. The way you're defining what it means to get a raise.
Okay.
So I don't want anybody to sit there and tell me that I don't care or understand the situation that we're all living right now. I know exactly what you're describing. So don't for 1 second think that I'm making any of these decisions without an understanding of what you and your families are going through. We're being asked to triage a gaping wound that we didn't create. There was some discussion of some things that happened in the 90s with people not receiving wage increases at that time. Those weren't our decisions. COVID was not our decision. Some of the liberal policies that have absolutely destroyed a once roaring economy just 2.5 years ago, we didn't make those decisions. So I'm sorry. This is a really hard decision, but for my part, I can't speak for everybody up here, but for my part, don't for 1 second think that I don't understand personally what many of the people in this room are dealing with. I heard it 2 or 3 times this afternoon, and it torqued me off.
I totally understand what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying, but like I said,
said it when the room was full. They left before we adjourned, Chad.
like I said,
Can we agree for the sake of decorum and professionalism in our meetings, that we're not going to call out from the back, that we're going to use a certain level of language, that we're going to approach the podium? I think this body deserves, I mean, we've respectfully listened. I respect each person in here. I'd like to hear from our emergency services.
You wanted me to come to the podium.
When he's done with his improvement request, please.
I misunderstood you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I
What
realize
he's
we're,
suggesting is just don't say something from the back of the room like you did. I mean, you know.
I realize we're all passionate, and I actually appreciate people fighting on behalf of their people. I mean that. And I appreciate what you're doing and coming forward. I just want to make sure, at the end of the day, we understand all of that, everybody. So.
and
Some people know this, some people don't. I worked at Woodward Academy for 3 years before I took a job as a school teacher.
I'm sorry, I have no idea what that is.
But other people in the room do. Other people in the room understand what that meant. And it was my job to teach those individuals. It was my job to teach those individuals for the last 11 years working for Sioux City Community Schools as an alternative ed teacher. So don't think that I'm making any of these decisions for my part without an understanding of what your experience is on a daily basis.
Like I said, and I totally hear what you're saying. All I'm asking for is that if we can give my employees the 2153 across the board so that they can have a better life of living and not having to worry about if they got to have 2 or 3 jobs. I understand what you're saying as an educator. My family's been in education my whole entire life. And I'm not saying that your job's not any more important than mine. All I'm saying is that my people are struggling right now, and that's why I'm here, is to ask for this raise.
Go ahead.
Do you have some other comparables that you're looking at in terms of paramedics in the area, or?
Well, it was hard to try to compare to other services because we do provide fire and EMS. If you look at what Sioux City's making compared to us, that's a more of an understanding.
You're using Sioux City Fire, Andrew?
Yes, Sioux City Fire and EMS, yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, they separate their EMS and fire, yeah.
They separate them, but if, for example, if there's an EMT and he has fire service, they still pay him for his fire service.
Okay.
And vice versa.
What other counties have paramedics around our area? Do we have,
we're
one of the only counties that has full-time
So
paramedics, is
Ida
that-
County
Okay.
has paramedic service, and I believe so that I was told that they're getting ready to move in their next budget year to full-time, 24 hours a day. Right now, they run Monday through Friday.
Do you know what they're being paid by chance?
No,
Okay.
I do not. And then Pottawatomie County has paramedics as well. And other than that, I don't really know right in this region. I could tell you across the river that South Sioux City is running fire and EMS in the same capacity that we are.
And around comparability of what you're saying for Sioux City Fire?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Guess, is there anyone that's willing to make a motion on this matter?
I would move that, to move as recommended by the director to the 2153 across the board.
Anybody? Going once, going twice. I will die for lack of a second. And I'm sure this is something that will probably be revisited. I can't tell you when.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else you got there, Dennis?
That's all I have till next week.
Okay. Item 12, reports on committee meetings. Anybody have any this week?
I did, Mr. Chair. We had the conference board.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of things. The next meeting is February 23rd, noon public hearing. We will fight the state on a state equalization order. Right now, 22% was mandated on all multi-res. And the fight is to get that down to 15% or to 12%. And so that represents about $55 million to the taxpayer. And a conference board, their wages, and this is not us, this, as a whole is 2.75%. And year 2 and 5 are reopeners for them. And so then I also had the Les Hills Alliance and projects approved, about a little over $10,000 on 6 different projects for conservation. They also had an Iowa story. It was a contest in which you can motorcycle, RV, have a guidebook throughout the Les Hills. The grand prize it was about a $300 getaway, included Sioux City, Hampton Inn, Buffalo Watching, and the Les Hills, Uncommon Ground, and Sloan. And they are lobbying for the 3/8 cent of the next 1% sales tax for conservation. Those are my 2.
Anybody else have one? I gotta go back to last week. Yeah, conference board is all I had. All right, citizen concern round 2.
Okay, well, just to clarify, I guess, last week I thought I prefaced before I ever spoke that I try to put myself in another person's shoes and acknowledge that what you guys are going through is not an easy decision whatsoever. And the money side of it is what you've been elected to do. And I acknowledge that it's not an easy decision. I don't think I didn't try to call anybody out in specifically or try to accuse you of not understanding what's going on or anything like that. I thought most of the people that spoke today were fairly respectful. So if any of you took it personally, then from my perspective, I would apologize. I'm not trying to point the finger at any of you, and I wouldn't necessarily want to be sitting in your shoes. That's why I didn't run for your position, because it's not an easy position to sit in. I acknowledge that. But I do think that it is, and I appreciate the acknowledgement. It is my responsibility to fight for the employees. And as a couple of them mentioned, and I know you all have watched the news, this is not a profession that people are knocking down the doors to get into anymore. It was when I started. The city of Sioux City would have 400 applicants. I mean, they literally would fill the West High Auditorium with 400 applicants, and that's just not the case anymore. The one thing that I forgot I was going to mention earlier, and you alluded to it, Supervisor Ung, last week, about the concern of being able to attract the correctional officers for the new jail so that we have the proper staffing to try and get the revenue. I learned after the meeting last week, 2 of the correctional officers that spoke today, Sergeant Stoliker and Correctional Officer Jungie, who do transports for our sheriff's office, were at a prison in Nebraska, and the person that met them there asked them how long they had been on. They told them. They said, we can get you an interview today if you want to start with us in a week or 2. And because of your service, we can start you out at $86,000 a year. So just 3 months ago, the state of Nebraska, supported by a Republican governor, Ricketts, gave their prison guards a 40% pay increase from $20 an hour to $28 an hour because they're overcrowded in their prisons, like our jail is overcrowded. Overcrowding in a correctional facility makes for even more unhappy inmates. And so what they were seeing was a 30 to 50% turnover rate in their prisons, and they weren't able to attract people to come. Now they can. And I'm not suggesting that we give anybody a 40% pay increase. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think when they told me that and told me that they're being actively recruited, and then today I found out from Sheriff TeBrink in Plymouth County, they gave a 6% increase for all elected officials across the board and gave the sheriff an I think it was $8,000, I don't have my notes, $7,000 or $8,000 wage adjustment on top of that, which brings him in line with the Back the Blue legislation for Plymouth County, which is different than us, and I understand that. That bumped their, and Simone had the numbers, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but it is getting more and more difficult. Just so, and as you're making these decisions, and again, I think that it's my responsibility to support the employees, but also to give you all of the information that you have, that's out there that you may not be aware of. You know, I don't know if you guys know that the Nebraska prisons are now the third highest paying prison system in the United States. So when we're looking at hiring 15 or 16, whatever it's going to be, with normal attrition, it's going to be more than 15. And Dakota County is looking at hiring 16 to 17 at the same time, and they're directly competing with the Nebraska prison system, and so are we then by comparison. We're all in a tough situation because we got to have that revenue. But in order to get those federal prisoners, and Supervisor DeWitt brought it up at one of the deals, if you don't have it properly staffed and go through past their inspections and all the other things, then it can ruin the whole recipe, right? So I wear my emotions on my sleeve, okay? And when we walk out of the door, I'm over it. But I really think that I just want you all to have all the information that you need so that you can make the best informed decision for the taxpayers of Woodbury County moving forward. So that's all I have to say, okay?
Yeah,
Just a point of order. Mr. Wright, could you please wear your microphone? I noticed you haven't been doing that lately, and you spoke passionately, and none of it was recorded, so just...
My apologies. Glad to talk to anybody after a meeting anytime, or call on the phone.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Sheehan is such a better speaker than me. I want to echo again, I hope that we haven't offended anybody on the board. I feel like I had a great, respectful conversation with Mr. Taylor yesterday. I understand that this is an ask. I understand, the position that you guys are in. And echoing off what he was saying, I would love if Mark would speak to some of this. If I could ask Mark a question, roughly off the top of your head, 5 years from now, how many of our guys are going to be gone? Rough number.
Retirement?
Yeah. Next 5 to 10 years.
We'll have 3 foremen gone, so younger staff will move into those positions. We've lost most of our staff from attrition already. I've replaced...
For the record.
Oh, sure. Sorry. I've replaced 75% of the staff now in 13 years. When I got here, the average age was 58. At this point, I think I've only got 6 or 7 employees out of 51 that are over 55 left. So it's fewer, but we do have senior staff members who are in management who will be moving aside too. So. But I had similar problems with hiring this last time too. I had 6 applicants for 2 jobs. Only 2 were suitable. I hired 1. The other guy turned me down. So we're out with we're out advertising again for the morning position.
Thank you very much for that, Mark. It's one of the things I mentioned too, and I'm not trying to beat the same drum I beat earlier, even though it ties in with it. One of the things I mentioned to Mr. Taylor yesterday was that I don't work for the county. I'm just representing these guys, but at these meetings, and and as I talk with them, I shouldn't be the guy who's begging them to stay with the county. You know, like, you know, they're telling me they want to quit, and I'm the one asking them, just as their union rep, like, hey, you know, hey, stick it out, this is still a great job, you know, like, you know, we'll get a better contract next, whatever. You know, but, you know, they're not, at the meetings, they're complaining to me about, you know, oh, we got these new guys, they don't know what they're doing, it's dangerous, it's, you know, one guy was, they talked about a ride-along where, a guy was literally shaking, he was so nervous, plowing snow for, you know, out there, and, I just don't know how we're gonna, I don't know how we're gonna fix this problem of being able to get quality candidates. I mean, 2 people hired 1, you know, hopefully, bouncing back off of what Sheehan was talking about, I hope that, you know, that by fixing this problem, fiduciary, or monetarily, that we can get some better people back into our workforce. So, and I'm happy to talk with anybody afterwards too. I mean, I'm an open book too. I appreciate you saying that you talk afterwards, and I would actually like to if we could. So, yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Of course, not to hear everything that was said earlier again too. Anybody else to? All right, moving on to board concerns.
Mr. Ung, do you plan on being at the IT meeting tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have one?
I just want to make one comment, and I don't want to engage in deliberation on something that's not on the agenda. I just want to share personally. I appreciate those of you who have addressed the board tonight. I realize there's a lot of other places you could be, probably namely home with your families after a long day of work. Sometimes I think we get boxed into the either or. Either you're going to do this or you don't care. I echo in some respects Supervisor Wright's sentiments. This is a tough struggle.
Unamplified sentiments.
Yeah. But I would say this. I've always had a problem with management, in this case maybe wage plan, making more than those who are bargained for. I've never liked it. I think there's a gap there, and there's a gap there this year. How to address that is something I'm willing to consider and think about. I don't know, but I'm willing to consider that. I've never liked elected officials ever suggesting getting more than union folks and those who are bargained for, whether that's 2.75 or 2.25. So that's why I've always said I was going to take 0, because I never thought it was right. Those leading, asking for percentages this year that are 10 to 15 times what you all are getting. So I never will. So with that, I'm willing to potentially look at some of those solutions. And that's all I have to say.
Anyone else on the board? We have Farm Bureau on Thursday who was going to be there, and we posted that, right? Okay. You're going to go?
Next Tuesday, after the county conference board meeting, we have a landfill meeting at 6:10, because we'll have the mayors somewhat trapped there to get this thing resolved with the landfill. So are Justin, Keith, the representatives? Or Rocky?
It's Justin and Rocky.
Okay, will there be any more supervisors there to listen?
I'll probably go.
So we should post it?
Yep.
As a gathering then? Okay, because we need to get something resolved.
Aren't landfill meetings normally posted as well? But I mean, I guess posted as a board of supervisors.
We got them here, so we're gonna get them while we got them,
Yep.
because we got somebody sign checks. We're sitting there with 7,000 checks, can't sign, and the vendors kinda like to have their money. So, that'll be at 6:10 next Tuesday.
All right, seeing no other concerns, we are adjourned. Thank you.